Welcome to Community Church, Unitarian Universalist. I'm your worship associate, Jim O'Neill, and it's a joy to be with you today in person and those joining us virtually. We welcome all here who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every human being and every being. We are a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. Please look to your weekly emails for announcements, but we do have two announcements this morning. The first from Michelle and then from Emma.
Good morning. In case you didn't know, our community justice ministry is hosting our first monthly postcard writing party today after church. We will be writing postcards to voters in Virginia to encourage them to vote in the congressional primary. We'll be doing this monthly from now through November, and lunch will be served. So even if you can't stay and write postcards, there's plenty of lunch, so please stay and break bread with us.
And if you're not aware, next week for the service, we'll be dedicating the sanctuary in honor of Davis. And Laura Miller is leading the service, and there will be reception afterwards. And if anyone can volunteer to bring something or help out with the reception, please contact Laura. There's an announcement in the newsletter, so her contact information is there, or you can come and ask me or someone else and we can get that to you.
We are privileged and delighted today to welcome to our pulpit Jeff Golger. He is part of the preacher pack from the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge that so generously offered to visit with us. He is also a president of their board, and he is a dedicated bread baker. He even brought a sample of his, so after the service, we'll be breaking bread. Please join now in our land acknowledgement, which is printed on the back of your auto service. We acknowledge and pay tribute to the original inhabitants of this land. The city of New Orleans is a continuation of an indigenous trade hub on the Mississippi River, known for thousands of years as the Lunch. Tribes that lived on this land include the Cattle, the Natchez, the Choctaw, Chickamauga, Ohlone, Tunica, the Biloxi, Akakashisha, among others. We recognize that as a result of broken treaties and involuntary removals, Native Americans are often forced from their lands. We remember and pay respect to the communities impacted by these actions. Native peoples have lived on this land since time immemorial, and the resilient voices of Native Americans remain an inseparable part of our local culture. With gratitude and honor, we acknowledge indigenous nations that have lived and continue to thrive here.
I invite you to look inward, to center ourselves for the coming hour, to slow your thoughts if you can, to be open to your physical sensations, and let yourself feel. I offer these words from a reading in the back of our gray hymnal. We come together this morning to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edge of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment, until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude, taking the time to look into one another's faces and see their communion, the reflection of our own eyes. This house of laughter and silence, memory and hope, is hallowed by our presence together.
It is our custom to light a chalice, invoking hope and eternal truth to our worship. Please join us in singing the words of our chalice lighting. We light this flame. The words are printed in the order of service. Jeff will now share with us our time for all ages.
This is a story adapted from Tales of the Seventh Day, a collection of Jewish Sabbath stories by Nini Yaffe. There once was a famous chef. For fun, she threw fancy dinner parties. The chef instructed her student chefs to cook extravagant dishes. Guests savored every bite. She traveled to experience new dishes for the dinners. Local cooks created dishes unique to their regions. The chef tasted them all and requested the recipes. One evening, while traveling, the chef stopped at a country farmhouse to ask for directions to a hotel. The family insisted that she spend the night. Happily, she was in time for dinner. Mother took a casserole from the oven. Brother tossed a salad. Sister sliced bread. "Let me help," said the chef, who set the table. When seated, the family held hands. The chef felt sister's hand slip into hers, and the chef reached for brother's hand. Mother said, "To have food upon the table," and the children replied, "It's a blessing." The mother said, "The sunset and the possibility of another sunrise tomorrow is a blessing," the children replied. "The love of family and the warmth of friendship is a blessing," the children and the chef replied together. Then they laughed, happy that the chef had joined in. While eating, everyone told stories about their day. The chef couldn't believe how delicious the food was. She didn't want dinner to end. But soon the children went off to bed. "May I have the recipes?" the chef asked Mother, who was flattered that the chef had so enjoyed their simple meal. Back home, the chef gave the student chefs the recipes and told them to prepare for a dinner party. When the dinner guests arrived, the casserole, salad, and bread were served. The chef took a bite. Something was wrong. This was not like the farmhouse meal. "What have you done differently?" she asked the student chefs. They promised they had followed the recipes. So the chef sent someone to the farmhouse to bring the mother. "What ingredient did you leave out of the recipes?" the chef asked. "What's missing cannot fit into a recipe," Mother replied. "Did you and your guests make the meal together? Did you hold fast to each other while giving thanks? Did you share your meal, your stories during the meal?" get to pick the songs. So thank you for singing one of my favorites. Good morning. It's so good to be with you all. Thank you for welcoming me, and Liz, my wife. Thanks especially for the privilege of an invitation to craft and present a service for you. I feel as if I know you, at least a little. You may remember that in late February I accompanied my friend Holly Haymaker, also of the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge, as she presented a service about Ralph Waldo Emerson. Holly brought me as a stage prop of sorts to portray Emerson as her foil for her takedown of that 19th century author and Unitarian. I too brought a prop, something more pliable and less likely to talk back than was Holly's prop. Bread. Because our talk today starts with bread. A college girlfriend taught me how to make bread. She's long gone. I still make bread. I've told that story dozens of times since I graduated from college 42 years ago next month. Usually when I've taken bread to work or a dinner party and someone says, "You bake bread?" Here it comes. A college girlfriend taught me how to make bread. She's long gone. I still make bread. The story's true-ish, but it's not the whole story, as we'll hear. My girlfriend taught me to make bread story is half of our jumping off point this morning. The other half is a story from the mainline Protestant tradition of my childhood and young adulthood. And it too involves bread, the Last Supper, and what follows it in the Bible stories: crucifixion, resurrection, passports to eternity. I thought immediately of the Last Supper when, as part of the preaching class in my home church that led me to craft this sermon, our instructor asked us to share a story that troubled us. The resurrection, of course, is the main event in Christianity. And my difficulties with it ultimately led me to a long period without church community. Until in 2005, I blessedly found Unitarian Universalism. Jesus says in the Gospels, "Take, eat, this is my body." I don't make bread as a rebuke to its role in the Last Supper stories, but my bread habit, curiously, has helped me move past resurrection indigestion. I make bread to eat, of course. More important for today is that I've come to approach making bread as a metaphor for an engaged spiritual life, even or especially for a spiritual atheist such as myself. And it's there, in metaphor, that I hope to share something meaningful enough for us to chew on, figuratively chew on. I'll stretch the metaphor toward 3 topics, even at the risk of flexing it too far, just as a novice bread baker might in kneading a mound of bread dough for too long. First is bread as a source of wonder. It comes to life from inert or seemingly inert ingredients. It exhales and grows, releases its breath, tightens, blooms again, and that, to my mind, is a wonder. A wonder that I think is akin to our spiritual mysteries. Second is bread making as communing with yourself, of sitting comfortably with the wonder. Meditation, introspection. It's the inside work we all must do, especially as Unitarian Universalists, when we are called to find our own answers. Third is bread making as communing with others. Bread for millennia has provided nutrition, yes, but also community around table or fire, feeding us while stabbing that part of our social natures that is happiest when we are together. For most of us, religion is best practiced in community. I know it is for me. So, wonder, introspection, community, a spiritual life in bread.
Now is our sacred time of joys and sorrows. If you are online, you may write your joys and sorrows in the comment section to be read aloud. In person, you may write them on one of the cards being passed out by our greeter. Our hymn during this interlude is from the Teal hymnal, number 1053, How Could Anyone? Number 1053, How Could Anyone? Kathy, it's a great joy to have Wilma with us today. A sorrow that our dear Al Malone was hospitalized after a fall. And another joy, so thrilled to have Wilma joining us today, and the friend who brought her.
Sorry, Alan Malone, as someone said, had a fall on Tuesday. As it turns out, he passed out and hit his head. As it turns out, he has some kind of internal bleeding and they haven't been able to find the source of it yet. So they're still running tests. He is still in the hospital. He's been there since Tuesday. And he's had at least a couple of blood transfusions, I think. And he is not up for visitors right now, but please let's keep him in our thoughts, and we'll try and keep you guys posted on how he's doing.
Know that we hold you, Alan and Marilyn, in our hearts. We light 2 more candles, one for the joys still bubbling up, too new to share, and one for the sorrows that we cannot yet put into words. We hold you in our hearts. This first reading is from Laura's Kitchen Bread book by Laura Robertson. Watch a 4-year-old burst in the door after a long morning with his buddies, still exultant, talking nonstop, but exhausted too from the sustained stress of it all. Watch him fall with instinctive good sense on a pile of Play-Doh and pull, push, and pummel and squeeze until finally all the tension has flowed out through his fingertips and he is at peace. Watch him and wonder why on earth grown-ups shouldn't have access to the same very healing, very basic kind of activity. And in fact, they can. For kneading bread dough, forming it into coffee cake wreaths, or cottage loaves, or long baguettes affords exactly this kind of satisfaction.
Thank you, Jim. You can make perfectly good bread with just 4 ingredients: water, yeast, wheat flour, and salt. Every loaf of leavened bread is but a variation, with substitutes, milk or beer for water, for example, buttermilk in these loaves, or additions, eggs, sweeteners, fats such as oil or butter in these, flours and meals from other grains. But just water, yeast, wheat flour, and salt will give you bread. Take French bread, a favorite of so many. Just water, yeast, wheat flour, and salt, and perhaps the tiniest smidgen of sugar. What makes French bread French isn't solely the ingredients. It's keeping the dough moist, so moist it's sticky and difficult to handle. It's forming the loaves just so, and then handling them without mauling them. It's scoring the loaves so they don't crack when baked. And it's baking them in a super hot oven filled with steam. That's how bakers get French bread from just water, yeast, wheat flour, and salt. Not easy, especially in a home oven, but also not a miracle. Except that it is. As with all leavened bread, as I think of it, a miracle without mystery. Let me explain. Yeast is a single-cell organism related to fungi. In bread dough, when moistened, it feeds on natural sugars into the flour. And as it feeds, it expels carbon dioxide as a gas and ethanol as a liquid. Yes, your bread dough makes booze. It's like a countertop still. Gluten is important here too. Stirring water or another liquid into wheat flour prompts proteins already in the flour to combine, forming gluten. That is, the stretchy stuff that gives bread its shape and texture. Then, as the yeast metabolizes, the gluten traps carbon dioxide and ethanol, and the dough rises. An hour or 2 later, you punch the dough down, squeezing out the gas. You then form a loaf and let it rise. Then into the oven where the initial blast of heat stimulates the yeast into a final orgy of exhalation before it dies. The loaf rises more. The liquid ethanol evaporates and expands, and the loaf rises still more. Now the loaf is set and a crust forms. The gluten strands subtract, the gases remain, giving bread its crumb. Is that not a wonder? Is that not a wonder? A miracle without mystery. Without mystery, because we know and understand what happens, but a miracle all the same, because it's amazing. You're probably not as turned on by the wonder at work in water, yeast, flour, and salt as I am as they become a finished loaf. That's okay, because things to marvel at are all around. And seeing them, seeing their potential to prompt wonder is fully leaning in to human experience. And not simply seeing, feeling. For feeling experiences, I think, a first rung on the ladder toward spiritual living, or if you like, religious expression. Even if you, as I do, lean toward observation and rational explanations. Spirituality is felt more than explained. Even a rationalist and an atheist can feel us spiritual atheists. I feel it in water, yeast, wheat flour, and salt. I feel wonder there. And wonder's language is ah. I also feel it when reading a perfectly crafted passage of prose. How did a human mind do that? Oh. And when sipping from my first cup of coffee around 6 a.m. most days, when the house is quiet, I'm alone with my beverage and my thoughts. How can a simple pleasure feel so glorious? Oh. When I get a text from a grown daughter saying simply, "How are you?" How did she know I needed her just then to ask? Oh. And with bigger things, much bigger things, how did humans, interesting, engaging, irritating, and flawed, and our multitudes of cultures, interesting, irritating, engaging, and flawed, arise from nothing over eons. We know a lot about how. It's still amazing. Or when feeling the flaws, especially, as when reacting to our innumerable isms and hurtful justifications. Feeling can amplify our reaction to experience. It's prelude to action against social injustice. So, yes, rational explanations alone are too small to contain wonder. So yes, water, yeast, wheat flour, and salt.
Well, if you're like me, you're ready to eat that bread. But we will have to wait a little bit. The Community Church Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us do the sacred work of bringing justice and spirituality and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online at ccunola.org/stewardship, and you can give in person this morning. Our offertory hymn is in your teal hymnal, number 1008, when our heart is in a holy place. 1008.
Press the heels of my hands into the dough, fold the smooshed loaf up at the crease, turn the mound a quarter turn clockwise, repeat. Press, fold, turn. Press, fold, turn. It's a full body activity if you fully commit. Kneading for 8 to 12 minutes, that's the usual duration, makes your forearms ache just enough that you experience exertion without too much discomfort. It loosens the shoulders, tightens the muscles across your middle, and if you're fully committed, kneading engages the legs. As you press with your hands, you rise onto the balls of your feet as when lifting something heavy. Press, fold, turn, repeat. That's not all. Kneading engages the senses. Touch, of course. As you work it, dough transforms from moist and sticky to satiny and supple. And as you near the end of your task, as more and more gluten has formed, the dough firms up, offering more resistance. Hey, baker, it's saying, I'm here, I'm alive, treat me with care. Truth here, it's better than petting a puppy. And smell. We all know the scent of freshly baked bread, but dough has its own scent. an amalgam of moistened flour, airborne flour dust, and, truth here, fermentation. That last scent is the yeast at work, as in wine or beer, and it's most noticeable after the first rise. Press, fold, turn, repeat. And it's a mantra without words. And like the mantra, press, fold, turn, repeat, focuses the mind. It focuses mind. And the feel and the scent of the dough crowd out any remnants of clutter, making focus even sharper. And it's there for me in the physical and sensory mantra of press, fold, turn, repeat, that my mind works best. Yours may work best when running, or hiking, or doing yoga, or gardening, or something else. No matter. After feeling, our next spiritual task is to chew on wonder, to look for meaning, to find our better, best selves in our wonder. It's difficult work, because introspection, like dough when needed, pushes back. It doesn't yield insights, answers, clarity easily. That's why we must press, fold, turn, repeat. An example I developed while kneading. I tried each New Year's to set a spoken mantra aimed at helping me look for my better, best self, especially in community, as I believe Unitarian Universalism calls us to do. My mantra 2 years ago, be patient, be kind. Be patient, be kind. If I succeed, or really, if I fail less often, then I live my better, best self with you and others. But I first must have looked inward, because I must know myself before I can be better with you. I must do my inside work, a task that honestly won't end. This year, again, my spoken mantra is be patient, be kind, because I still need work there. But that's a result too, achieving the self-awareness that I need that work. We say, to wonder. Introspection brings revelation, and revelation is exclamation. Oh. Even when that revelation has come with difficulty and in mighty small steps. Oh.
Our last reading is by Kim Ode, Baking with the St. Paul Bread Club. We talk a lot about the desire for community these days. We wonder how the internet enables people to connect over a mind-boggling array of passions. We live in amazing times. But I'm throwing in my lot with those who marvel over the connection we can make over a loaf of home-baked bread.
A finished loaf is the bread maker's reward. But it doesn't have to be the only reward, because when given as a gift or shared in a communal meal, the loaf brings people together. And that is a greater reward, just as the loaf itself is more than the water, yeast, wheat flour, and salt from which it rose. The Last Supper, as reenacted in Christian ritual and liturgy, focuses on linking an itinerant iconoclast named Jesus back to Hebrew prophecies and forward through his predictions at supper about betrayal and denial and life everlasting. But what if it was just a supper? And whether the Last Supper stories are literature and myth or connect to historical events doesn't really matter, because they have shaped history nonetheless, and not always gently. In the stories, events have suggested to that little band of wanderers around Jesus that there may be trouble. So they gather, not knowing if supper is waypoint or coda. They reminisce, drink, reminisce, eat, reminisce, and speak of the uncertain days ahead. Friends, the iconoclast says, we don't know what's going to happen. It may be grim. I'm ready for what comes. But a hurting world still needs our work now, today. So if the worst comes, continue the work. Gather often to celebrate it. And when you gather, when you break bread and drink, think of me. For if you remember me, then I will, in a way, live on in your work. A metaphor. A metaphor for connecting, for community, for action. A metaphor rooted in a meal and thus grounded in bread. We are a people, kind of people, the human species, including Unitarian Universalists. We need community. Community sustains us in family, in faith, and wherever and with whomever we share values, as in this beloved community. Community connects us through remembrance to ancestors and to people we've known and lost. Just as my college girlfriend was a longtime friend and only a one-week flame, during which, yes, we made bread once. She died a few years ago, taken by cancer. Bread connects us still, a blessing in bread. Community also connects us to humans we interact with but know scarcely or not at all. To restaurant servers, hairdressers, customer service reps, flight attendants, Uber drivers, pokey drivers. People whom, if we welcome wonder, practice introspection, and embrace community, we surely will treat more kindly more often. Community is one thing more, the most important thing, if, as Unitarian Universalists, we are committed to seeing the worth and dignity in every person. Shows our wonder, and reflects understanding and revelation. But community, in its most important sense, is a declaration. Yes, yes, yes to loving everyone, even those we don't understand, even those with whom, because of our limited experience in the world, we can't easily relate. Yes to seeking understanding, squashing our reflective biases, recognizing our unearned privileges. Yes to naming evil, breaking systems that oppress, challenging craven authority, fixing inequities. That is, yes to acting now, yes to accepting our discomfort and confronting our fears in acting now. That is community. Community rooted in love, community committed to action now, today. So, if I am the water, or you are, and if you are the yeast, or I am, and if they, all the multitudes of theys in the world and in this room, if they are the wheat flour, and if we all bring just a little salt, then yes, together we live into community. We make a better local. Amen.
We now extinguish the chalice, here that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. And now, the benediction.
May we leave this welcoming place today open to the wonders around us, both simple and profound, prepared to engage our experiences to live into our better, best selves, and fortified to act in support of the whole human community. Go in peace. Go in love. Amen. And our closing hymn, number 121 in the great hymnal, We Will Build for Him.